Hey everybody, welcome into Other Rhythm Fantasy Studios. I'm your host, Jamie from Other Rhythm Fan, and I got my co-host guest, JT from the JT Bruce Show, and I think you're the management of the Fantasy in Frames podcast as well.
Yeah, but I do all kinds of stuff over on Fantasy and Frame. So the Stew with JT Brew, the Dynasty evaluation, the Shoot the Gap IDP show. So I'm gonna do a little bit of everything over there.
Well, not to mention hockey too as well.
Yep, and my Around the Ice, our hockey show every Tuesday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central time as well. I'm just putting in my hockey bet right now for tonight.
Ooh, actually, I didn't set any of my hockey guys today, but I try to do that. My hockey team really not so hot today, but I do know a lot of people are trying to get Wylander for me, so yeah.
He's one of my favorite players. I love him.
Yep, I tried to get him the last couple of years if at all possible. So I've tried to get my fair share of Wylander and let's see who's the other guy from the Wild. I can't remember his name offhand. He's a hot commodity too. But thank you everybody for joining me and JT. We are actually going to do a rookie mock draft here this evening. We're going to do a 4-round, 2-minute mock draft. I mean, I guess you can say, I don't know if it's really a super flex or what. I mean, it's just a mock draft in general. Everybody can just kind of take your eyes for the mock and kind of put it to your strategy, I guess. I mean, I guess I put tight end premium in there, but a lot of us are going to be looking at tight ends too as well while we're going at it. I know there's a couple of guys I might want to go after. I think one guy is from Syracuse. I like him a little bit. He was, at least, I think I mentioned, he was like the 6th guy in fantasy points, 922 yards. I think he had 9 or 7 touchdowns on the year, which is not too bad for a tight end.
Yeah, I'm a huge Syracuse guy. Watch all their games. I went to grad school there, so I've been a Syracuse fan pretty much my entire life. So I watched all their games this year. Arando Gadsden was awesome at tight end. He actually came in a little heavier weigh-in than I thought he would be, which I was really pumped for. He was like high to like 247, 248, where I was afraid he'd be in the low 230s. So that was nice to see. Kyle McCord, their quarterback, I love. LaQuinn Allen, their running back. There's a lot of sneaky guys from Syracuse in this draft.
Yes. I'll put a link up in the corner for Kyle McCord. Me and JT Brew, we broke down Kyle McCord on one of our spotlights. So if you guys are like into, I think Kyle McCord, we kind of talked about Kyle McCord a little bit last night, but I'll put him up there for you guys to check him out. And I think I was actually watching a mock here the other day, and Kyle McCord actually is not getting drafted. So I think all in all, I think he will be either a nice waiver pickup after a draft if you got room for him. So I think I'm going to probably kind of float that way when it comes to Kyle McCord.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think by the time the draft gets here, he's going to be more on people's radar. I think he's going to be one of those later super flex leagues. I think people are going to take a shot on him. And I also, if you're in a 2 QB league, I absolutely think he's going to be drafted in 2 QB leagues. So he's a name a lot of people don't know about right now, but if he ends up going in the 3rd or 4th round in the NFL draft, he's definitely going to be going in the late 2nd, mid 3rd of super flex. But people just don't know where he's going right now. A lot of people don't know about him. Depending on where people have him ranked, I have him as high as QB4 in my rankings. I've seen quite a few other people that he's moved up their list as well. If he ends up being in the top 5 QBs drafted, there's no way in super flex leagues you're not going to see him picked up in a rookie draft that's at least 4 rounds. I would assume somebody will absolutely at least take a shot at him in the 3rd or 4th round. I know if everybody's not, I'm going to own him in every one of my leagues if nobody else jumps on him.
Yeah, because we were talking about some of the quarterbacks from last night, kind of, because I think there's quite a bit of a drop off. Because I mean, you got your Ward, Sanders, maybe Milrow and Dart, and then it kind of more of it kind of falls off. Well, I guess you can pick Gabriel in like the tier 1. Then after that, you got your you got your Leonard, McCord. You got your Will Rogers, the Seth Hennigans, Brady Cooks of the world, so those are kind of like your tier 2. And I mean, it sucks because remember, this crop of quarterbacks is not that great right now, and so you're like,
It's
it's really
not the
slim
greatest, like,
pickings.
high end, but I think some of these guys do have some potential to stick in the NFL and be around for a while. I think landing spots are gonna be huge. You know, if the Rams take somebody in the 2nd or 3rd round to back up Stafford, knowing that, you know, he's probably got maybe 2 years left, I think you're gonna see that guy go pretty high. I think if you see some of the high end, the teams drafted high in the 1st round, if they don't go QB and they jump in and take QB 2nd or 3rd round because they skipped early, I think you're going to see, because the situation is going to be, you know, one that somebody could win a job. Then I think you're going to see some guys draft a little earlier because of that reason. Now, if you get somebody getting drafted behind a Trevor Lawrence, or, you know, somebody that's, you know, mid to late 20s that you figure has got 6, 7, 8, 10 years left in their career, and they get drafted in the 4th round to back those guys up, that's where I think you're going to see those guys drop, because people aren't going to expect that guy to be a starter. And the only time you're going to see those guys go is if you're in a 2 QB league and you have that guy starter and you think he can win the backup job and you want to make sure you cover yourself. Then I think you're going to see those guys go a little more. But it's going to be really interesting at the combine this year. Because it's been a spot where a lot of people have skipped, at least the high-end QBs have skipped out. All these guys are playing for their lives this year. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see where guys kind of stand after that this year.
Yeah, I think so too as well. I mean, I think there will be a few guys. I know a lot of us, you know, for me, like when we, you know, think about super flex, I still consider them like me myself, kind of like the 2 QB leagues. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, it's a lot different. I'm like, no, to me, you know, it's a 2 QB league. You still have to think about 2 QBs in general, because mostly almost 99% out of, you know, a super flex, a lot of people are starting QBs. They're not getting paid at a tight end or whatever. Depends on your positioning, but more than likely, I see these more as like your 2 QB leagues and all in all. Unless you
Yeah.
have a different opinion.
No, I agree with you. The thing with QBs and 2 QB leagues are, just because you don't know from year to year, injuries are big because you got to start a second guy. I mean, if you get desperate in a super flex, you can play another player at the position if you have injuries or a bye week. In 2 QB leagues, if you're sitting with just 2 QBs, I'm one of those guys in a 2 QB league. If you don't have your starting quarterback's backup, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you got to have that guy just in case, because then you're just having an open spot if he gets hurt. And then you end up having to go trade for him. And then you end up having to trade a lot more than you want to get him. So
Yeah.
I'm always a proponent of 2 QB leagues. Make sure you have your starters quarterbacks. And I'm also a stasher in 2 QB leagues. I will stash backups for other teams, because that's when I get free draft picks. Somebody gets hurt, they come calling, I get a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for a backup QB. I'm taking that all day. So to me, 2 QB is a little bit more crazy when it comes there. I'm willing to take a chance on backups and a lot earlier in rookie drafts than I would necessarily in a super flex, where
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have to get a guy that's a backup. 2 QB, I feel a little more desperate there, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I started guys, you know, I started guys like Persett, Ritter, and I have Kenny Pickett, and then I have Winston and Purdy on, you know, on one of my dynasty leagues. And it's really, when you kind of get in those type of leagues or really slim pickings, you're like, God, especially if the starter does go out and he's out there in waiver wire and you're trying to pick some of these guys off, you know, it's very, very hard and
Absolutely.
whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of the downfall. I think we got one more position if we can. I think we might get that filled up here, and we'll get this on the road.
Say, not too bad. If we end up with one
Yeah,
computer pick, I think we'll be all right. So
yeah. If not, I think we'll get, I mean, I guess we can kind of get it rolling here. We'll get everything going, so everybody's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And if you guys want to jump into live chat, that'll be awesome too as well. I mean, that'd be if you guys thought a pick went too high or too low, hey, just put your thoughts out there. More the merrier. All right. All right, we are off. So
that dude
we
with
got
the first pick, I like it.
Yep. So Gentry comes off the board, kind of typical. I mean, you know, with when you think about the running backs here, you know, you got your top 5 guys, which is not bad at all.
There we go. My boy John
Ooh,
McGlynn from the Dynasty Evaluation taking Ted McMillan
nice.
at 3. I like that. Hampton going in front of me, getting to me at 4 here. You said you want to count this as a super flex or kind of
Yeah, I mean,
idea?
we can just kind of go either way. If you're
Okay,
looking for
I'll talk it
if
through.
you're
So in super flex, I'm going QB here at 1-4 if it gets to me. If
yep,
it's non-super flex, I'm skipping QB at 4. I'm not taking QB probably till late first or early second round. For me here in super flex, he's been my QB1 for 2 years, so I'm going with him, and that's Shadur Sanders out of Colorado. I love Shadur's landing spot could change my mind a little bit, possibly, but I really like Shadur Sanders. I just wrote a profile on him. If you follow Thor Nyson on X, he just came out with a really nice article that I just reposted on my X page at JT Orange. A really
yep.
nice article on Shador, why he likes him and why he's his QB1. I agreed with pretty much everything he said in that article. So if you're a doubter or you don't know much about Shadur, that's a good spot to go take a look at that. I also have an article on him on DLF. If you're a Dynasty League football member, I've got an article on him as well over there.
Yeah. So here I'm at the 8th. I'm actually here. I'm in one of my leagues. I have 2 first picks. So I have a 4th and 8th, and I figured I would kind of go around the 8th pick. And I can't remember exactly here what I actually I finished at the bottom here. I know a lot of my leagues here. I'll get to my team here quick here, and I'll pull that up here. I'm trying to debate if I actually want to go running back, a wide receiver, or since Sanders kind of off the board, I'm not much of a fan of Sanders. I don't like Travis Hunter either. I know I might need some quarter. I think I'm gonna just go with Cam Ward here. Oops.
I like that pick. If he
Yeah,
gets there in a super flex, if you're at the end of the first round and either of those top 2 guys get there in super flex, I think that's the move to make.
yeah. I was looking at my CFB dynasty here because I had Aiden O'Connell and then I had Justin Herbert as far as like my quarterbacks. And so it's just like I kind of need a quarterback and I since I had 2 first round picks, so I was kind of debating just kind of see who lands where, and I'm like, ooh, I might be able to land a quarterback in the first round with a quarterback and either a running back, wide receiver kind of combination there. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of up in the air on that part.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I have a couple leagues. I have a couple first round picks, so I'm going to see where the quarterbacks go. I'd like to get a quarterback and a running back, but if quarterbacks go, then that's going to be kind of who falls to me is running back, wide receiver, that type of thing. It's going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So I know I'm kinda hurting when it comes to, like, wide receivers too as well. So I might try to find a nice running back or wide receiver in a second as well. We had Judkins, Hunter, Ibuka, and Caleb Johnson in the 12th, which I don't mind if he does land in the 12th round. I mean, that's gonna be some great value for a guy like him. So, especially with Genti going before him and then Judkin a little bit, I think I would've gone, Johnson over Judkin, but since this is kinda more of a kinda see what you kinda get, from what I did, I tried to kinda put the mock more towards what people might be kinda drafting, so it's not
Mhm.
really a particular draft. So, I mean, it's just kind of an overall draft you kinda based on what you see here. I mean, it's everybody's gonna draft differently too when it comes to your mock draft. Somebody else might need something different, but, in my eyes, I think you kinda draft to what you kinda need all in all, even though it might sound like it'd be a bad pick or people might
Mhm.
hate you for it, but that's just me, though.
Yeah,
Like
if I had not gone Sanders here, I'm on the clock. If I had not gone Sanders at 1-4, I have to be honest, I'd probably be going Jackson Dart here at 2-4. He's my QB3.
yeah.
I like him, but with going with Sanders, assuming I got 2 other starters, at least in a super flex league, so he's my 3rd starter. Instead of going Dart with a 4th, I do really like this running back class. A lot of guys are kind of there for me, a big mix of them. Oh, this is tough. I do like a couple of the tight ends here too. So this one is a tough one for me as I'm looking down the list of who I like. I'm probably Oh, it's tough. I'm probably gonna go with Harold Fannin here. There's a lot of guys I like in this range, so it's not like I'm looking because I don't like any of these guys. There's just so many different ways I could go there at the 2-4. Like I said, I would have probably went Jackson Dart if I hadn't gone Sanders in the first round, or if he would have gotten picked in front of me and I wouldn't have got a QB. But I do like Fannin there as tight end 3. Obviously, huge upside with what he did in college. Got to land in the right spot where someone's going to use him as kind of a slot receiver.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. I'm up to pick now, and we got some night since we. Oh, actually, I might go running back here. I think I might go running back here since there's actually still some nice guys here on the board. I mean, I love some Gordon. I love Sampson. RJ Harvey is a guy that that's kind of on the rise too as well. I kind of like him a little bit too. We're going to eventually get a spotlight done in him. But I can't pass up Ollie Gordon here in the second round, especially going in the 8th pick in the second round. That's some good value for a guy that is in the top 10 of running backs.
Yeah, I almost took Gordon. If Devin Neal wouldn't have gone at 2-3, I would have taken Devin Neal. He's my favorite early second round running back to take. So Trey Harris and Neal were the two guys that I would have been looking for there at 2-4. When they went in front of me, I kind of changed pace. And like I said, went with Fannin there. There is a lot of running backs I likely am going to take in that early second round. But just looking at the board where it's at right now, there's a lot of guys I still like out there. So I'm kind of waiting for the third, fourth round to see if those guys get back to me that I really like.
For sure. Let's see. We had now just after my pick, we had Isaiah Bond. I'm not a fan of Isaiah Bond. I just don't think his value is that high, especially coming from Texas. I've a lot of people are high in him, but I just don't really see the value in a Bond in the second round. I think there's better value in the second round. Especially you can't. I mean, you're passing up guys like Jalen Royals or Jaden Higgins or Torrey Horton. Well, not really Horton, but a Jalen Noel from both of those guys. Higgins and Noel were the top guys up in Iowa State. So I probably would have maybe went Noel or Higgins in one of these spots up here in the 2-9 spot. I think Bond's more of a waiver wire guy in my eyes, but unless you have different opinions on
I think
Isaiah
he's
Bond.
going to get picked. I think probably the end of the second, beginning of the third is where he's going to get picked just because of the speed. I have to be honest with you. He's not a guy on my list. He would have to drop pretty far for me to consider taking him. I just didn't see the consistency in college. He's just a guy that worries me. He worries me that he's going to be a one-trick pony in the pros, and he's going to be a decent deep route guy in the pros, but he's not going to be a good fantasy player. So that worries me a little bit. So coming up to me here, the 3-4, I like Dylan Sampson. So Sampson at 3-1 was a guy that was on my list here. Jackson Dart, like I said, I already took a QB, so I skipped him at 2-4. If he would have got back to me at 3-4, I think I would have had to go Jackson Dart at 3-4. Like if he would have got here, but he went 3-2. I do like Royals a lot. He's a guy moving up my list. He went 3-3. Here, since I skipped at running back in the second, this is probably where I'm going running back here. There's a lot of guys I have in the same boat together that I really like. I think I haven't taken a lot of him in mocks, but I'm going to do it here, and that's RJ Harvey out of Central Florida. He's a guy, he's in there with a lot of other guys. I think I'm going to end up jumping around on what running backs I take in a lot of my leagues because I'm going to take a little bit of
sweet Jesus.
I think that's what I'm going to end up doing.
Yeah, I like Harvey, and if he does land in the 4th round too as well, I mean that's going to be great value for someone.
If he's a 4th round pick in the NFL and you can get him in the 3rd, I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And like I mentioned too, it all depends on what you guys are drafting and what players you guys like too as well. I mean, I try to draft to what I kind of like to and what I kind of preferably need because I could have last year's mock or last year's draft I was in. I could have gotten May, but I actually took him over Brian Thomas. I took him over there, and Brian Thomas lit it up this year. So I was like, did I really miss out on Drake May? Maybe, maybe not. But I mean, for what I kind of wanted at the time, hey, I was pretty well happy with taking
Yeah, one of my favorite
Thomas.
moves I did last year in a league that John McGlynn runs, his Baby and Boomers League for the Mighty McGlynn leagues. One of my favorite trades, I moved out of the 1-2 which would have been either Jaden Daniels or Marvin Harrison Jr., I moved back to the 1-4. I took Drake May of the 1-4 and added the 1-8 in that trade, and I was able to get Brian Thomas with Drake May in the first round. And I love that move when I was able to do it. I hated missing out on Marvin Harrison. Jane Daniels, him and May were like neck and neck for me. So able to move back, and I loved Brian Thomas, be able to move back and get a wideout and a QB in a league where I really needed wide receiver help was big for me. So I like that move too. If you can do something like that this year, move out of the top 4, my top 2 or 3, move back a couple spots and get a second first rounder. I like that move a lot.
Yeah. So I went with Gadsden here in the third round. Yeah.
Going to be interested to see where he ends up going in a lot of drafts, because if I don't take tight end in the first 2 rounds, the third round, I'm definitely going to be having an eye out on him, see where he goes. I really would love to see. I really wanted to see him get to the 4th, and I was going to try to steal him in the 4th, but I like when you got him there in the 3rd.
Yeah. Yeah, he I think he was overall the 6th overall tight end in college fantasy, because we here at Other Rhythm, we actually cover college fantasy football. So we've covered some Fannings. We talked about there was a couple other guys. We talked a couple Pitt guys, and there was a couple other guys too. And I think Gatson was kind of like the 4th or 5th guy often pretty much mock draft, or not mock drafts, but the actual drafts. And I know we hit a couple tight end guys too late during the waiver wires, but it was slim pickings, because I think overall when it comes to a lot of the tight ends, a lot of them, there's some of them that are not really kind of like your second stringer, like tight end 2. They might be a little fillers here and there. Not a lot of them are going to be popping from what I've seen. Your average tight end's probably going to see 400 to maybe 600 yards tops, maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns, if that. It's very slim pickings when it gets the tight end position.
Yeah, I think there's more talent coming in the league. I like the guys coming in the league, but some of these guys might take a little while. Like, we've gotten spoiled the last couple of years with the rookies coming in and having monster years with Brock Bowers and Sam Laporta. We just have to understand that's so rare that happens. It'd be nice if one of these guys, a Warren or a Loveland or a Fannin, went off. I do think it depending on situation, we have to temper expectations a little bit about what we're going to get in year 1. If you have time to wait on a guy, I love Arroyo and I love Gadsden. Those are 2 guys I think won't probably hit their rookie year, but give them 2-3 years. I think those guys could end up being pretty good guys, as they're both talented. They both have a lot of athleticism and skill. So I think it's just, getting those guys to get there. If you can wait on them, I like it. Both those guys would have been on the board for me at 3-4 if I hadn't taken Fannin at 2-4.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple other tight ends too. I mentioned Bartholomew is a guy who's from Pittsburgh. He was a guy we kind of talked about a little bit. He was kind of like their third, kind of the second guy on that team with Pittsburgh. Just they didn't really have quite of an offense really, so they needed guys to toss to. Desmond Reed was one of their guys they had back in the backfield there. The wide receivers, it was kind of lacking. So Bartholomew was a guy that they kind of tossed to quite a bit. But as far as his rankings, he was down there a little bit. But he's a guy to kind of watch. And
he's a late sleeper. If you're in like a 5-round draft, he's a guy you could probably take in the 5th or get as a priority free agent. But yeah, he's a guy I like here. So coming up here, Damian Martinez is a guy I like a ton. He would have been on my list right here at 4-4. Again, there's a couple tight ends I like, but the fact that I already took Fannin here, wide receiver, there's nobody I absolutely love here at 4-4. I'm probably taking Harvey. I want to take a swing at another running back since I didn't take running back in the first 2 rounds. So here I'm going to go Woody Marks out of USC. I just really love his receiving profile. He caught a ton of passes at Mississippi State before he transferred to USC. And then at USC, he really showed that he could run the ball. I think he's highly underrated. He's in my top 10 of running backs in this draft class.
I really get a chance to really look. I think I kind of seen him play a little bit, but I was trying to be a USC hater because I was like, just because they had Caleb Williams and stuff like that last year, I was just trying to be a little bit of a snark. But I mean, there's talent there. I mean, Zachariah Branch, he was kind of a speedy wide receiver. He he was a guy I was kind of eyeing. He was a freshman last year. He was a guy I was kind of watching a little bit to see what he was kind of like a Xavier Worthy kind of player in
Mhm.
my eyes, but he transferred over to the Bulldogs down to Georgia, and
That's the
he
tough
might
part about him. I
resurrect.
like him a lot. I have him in quite a few Devy leagues. He was a Devy darling coming out. And man, him going to Georgia, I know in the Devy space, people are not happy about that, as very few Georgia wide receivers have really been able to explode on the college side. So I know a lot of people are down on Branch because of the transfer to Georgia, though I still think he has some pretty good talent.
For sure. So in the fourth round here, we still got some great talent up here.
Oh,
I got
a
Ward.
ton of
I have
talent.
Ward. Yes. I have Ward, Gordon, Gatson. Oh, let's see here. I think I might want to try to get a wide receiver here. Let's see. Did Higgins come off the board or Noel? I don't think I
Higgins
see the
came off at 3.9.
I did.
Noel is still out there.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Yep. I think here's another guy too. There's a couple other guys that I think I can't really pat. There's Ty Felton is a guy. He's been kind of in the like I think the conversation like top 5, top 6 somewhere with some of these other wide receivers a little bit, but he had a 1,000-yard season. I think I'm gonna swing this way. I'm gonna pass on that, and I'm gonna go Pat Bryant here.
I
Um,
love that pick, man. I
yeah,
was so debating Pat Bryant at 4-4 with Woody Marks, and I was hoping he would get back to me. If we were going fifth, 5 rounds, if he would have got there, I would have been on that one. I love Pat Bryant. I am going to be taking a ton of him in the 4th round in drafts. I
I
just love Pat Bryant. He is not super sexy, but he is good all around. The guy high points the ball. He runs really crisp, good routes. He can do everything. Guy just played really well. Illinois was a
yep.
big contributor there on an offense that was just pitiful the last couple of years, and then finally really turned it around the last 2 years. He was Altmaier's #1 target there at Illinois. Really
Yep.
impressive with him. He is going to be a great wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 on a team. If he goes into a high-powered offense, I think he could actually be a flex relevant play on a high-end offense as a wide receiver 3.
I mentioned last night, I thought maybe he kind of resembles kind of like a T. Higgins kind of style. He's 6'3". I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
well, because I know down there in Illinois that he was pretty much their focal point. He was the kind of their wide receiver 1 down there, and I'm like, well, they didn't really, with Altmaier, not really that great or whatever. He played very well this last year compared to the season before. And it was to me, it was almost kind of like another like Tank Dell situation where Tank Dell made the quarterback and whatnot. We always kind of make that pun a little bit, but overall, I think Pat Bryant he could be a nice wide receiver too. If he does go up the board. And that's my thoughts when, just kind of thinking about him, like, well, he almost resembled a kind of a T. Higgins style kind of player. He could be
Yeah,
the one, but more
I
like
think
he
he's a T
was
Higgins
too.
type of player. I don't think he's quite the athlete that T Higgins is,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
overall with his speed and everything. But he's got that body type. He's got good hands. Man, in the right situation, I think Pat Bryant is going to be really good. He's a guy that people are going to start hearing about. I mean, he's a little bit of a sleeper just because he played at Illinois. Unless you're from Illinois like me, right down the street, people didn't really see a lot of him. I saw a ton of him. He's a
Yeah.
guy I had on a ton of C2C and CFF teams. He was like one of my favorite sleeper pickups, just because I really like what he can do. So he was really good. Probably my favorite pick outside of your pick for Bryant there. I love Mason Taylor from LSU at tight end. Him going at what was that, 4.6 or whatever
Oh,
it was.
yeah.
I
Sorry.
really liked him there. He's a guy that I'm going to be eyeing in the 4th round of drafts. I actually have him as my tight end 4 in this draft class.
Oops, there we go.
I just think that he could. I think he has all the ability to be an inline, outline guy. I think he's highly underrated. They had so many good wide receivers the last couple of years at LSU that he didn't become the focal point. But if you look at his stats from freshman, he played through freshman, sophomore, junior year. Consistent, 40 to 50 catches every year, 400 to 500 yards receiving, 2 to 7 touchdowns right in that range. I think he's going to be a really good guy at the next level. I think he's going to be one of those guys that we're going to look at a few years down the line and be like, oh, man, he was a steal in the draft. I should have realized how athletic and good he was. I think he's going to be a guy that's a steal. So him and Gadsden are two of my favorite tight ends. If you don't get the top three and you wait, those are two of my favorite guys to grab.
Yeah, just briefly here, but we'll go back to the mock. I mean, we streamed last night. Me and my co-host, we did the Senior Bowl and the East and West, and we mentioned Jack Bett, Pat Bryan was one of these, Jaden Higgins, Noel. We mentioned Ty Felton and his little brother Dequan Felton. Just a lot of these guys on here, you're pretty much over 1,000-yard receivers. Besides Felton, and there was one other guy here that was kind of under. I mean, well, Pat Bryant, almost 1,000-yard receiver, 10 touchdowns on this season, which is, double digits. Double digits is fanatic. If he could transition in that to the NFL, I mean, a lot of people are going to be loving him. Higgins and Noel, they're both 1,000 yards. Higgins had 9 and Noel had 8. So I mean, these guys are going to be stout players. And Noel's more your slot guy with Pritchett, a little bit smaller guy, from South Alabama. You had 1,100 some odd yards, 9 touchdowns. So there was a couple guys we kind of talked about. Dart was another guy. He actually got drafted too as well. I just quickly, we can go back to the mock here too as well. Is there any surprises if anybody thought there was any surprises out there in the first, second, third, or fourth? You can leave them in the comments too as well. Is there any thoughts to you, JT?
Yeah, just about the draft, where we're at on some of these guys.
Yeah. Just in
general. I like some of my favorite picks, like getting Ward. You getting Ward at 1.8, I think is really nice. Looking at some of these other ones, like I said, I really like Trey Harris. Trey Harris at 2.1. I think there's a chance he's going to sneak into the first round in drafts. I like him a lot. Devin Neal is a guy I was getting like at the beginning of the third a couple weeks ago. People are high on him now. You're going to have to get him in the early second. I've had a couple 2.5s and he hasn't got to me at 2.5, as I would have taken him at 2.4 in this one. So I like that pick a lot. I think Tez Johnson's underrated. I think he's a guy in a open wide receiver class. I think he's going to sneak up people's draft boards. If I end up going with like one of those wideouts in the second round, because I traded for a lot of second round picks, planning to go running back. But if I end up taking one of those guys in the second round, I think there's a lot of guys really similar to each other right now. Obviously, draft capital and landing spots going to be a big deal, but man, there's a lot of guys you can still go out there and get in the third, fourth round, especially tight end wise too, if you don't get one of the top guys. So I like those spots for those. I love Arroyo and Gasson in the third. Taylor in the fourth I thought was phenomenal. I like Damian Martinez a lot from Miami. I think he ended up being a better pro than he was a college player. Him going at 4.3, if he gets to the fourth round, excuse me, I'm taking him everywhere. If he gets in the fourth round, I would have taken him right there if he wouldn't have got taken the spot in front of me.
If you're up for it, I'll actually make this. If you're up for another mock quick, we can do another quick mock. I'll make it super flex so everybody kind of. Let's see if we can get anybody else. If there's anybody who wants to join, I can leave the link in the comment section. So if you guys want to jump in and join us, you're more than likely to. Let's see here. I think I already got everything kind of set there. There we go. I'll try to get another mock set up here for everybody. We can do one more mock and we'll get a body here. We can have some fun. All
right. Yeah, one of my favorite things about these mocks is just trying to pick from different spots, depending on how many leagues you're in, getting different shots at different things and, trying different spots, different strategies. I like to do that sometimes because I want to see kind of what is possible. Different spots where guys are going. Obviously, people know their home leagues really well. And obviously the home leagues, guys are going to draft a little bit different depending on who you got there. But I always think these are just, even though we haven't seen where these guys are going yet. And I know some people are like, why would you even mock before they're drafted? To me, I like to kind of get a feel for guys and what people are thinking. And I like to do my rankings beforehand. Then I like to see where guys go in the draft and then do a separate set of rankings without looking at my first rankings at all. based on landing spot and opportunity. And then I like to put those rankings together and look at them. Because there's times where I get a little excited about a guy going early in a draft, and I'm like, oh, he went in the second round. Like, holy crap. And I go back and look at my rankings. I have him like 10th or 12th. And I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be all over that guy. Or my thing is, do I need to go back and reevaluate that player? Do I need to go, okay, man, maybe I didn't look at him hard enough. And sometimes I've looked at it, I'm like, man, I still don't see what this team saw in that guy. I'm going to let somebody else take the chance on him, and I'm going to take a guy that was higher on my draft list.
For sure. Hopefully we can, if you guys are in the chats, go ahead and join our mock draft, and let's see if we can get a couple more guys. If not, I'll just we just kind of review this 4, and then we can just bounce up out of here. We'll see if we can get some more people up in this mock draft, and if not, we'll just kind of leave it as be. I sent you a link too as well for a mock.
I'm in there. I'm waiting to see who wants to take spots, and then I can kind of fill in around where everybody else is. So I'm in there. I'll click on a spot whenever if we get this thing going.
Yeah, for sure. Other than that, I know there's some people in the chat in the comments viewing us, and if you guys want to jump in. The link is out there. Come in, jump in, pick a spot, and join us if you guys want. Let's see here.
Waiting on that. While we're waiting on that, I'll talk about a lot of people in their rookie drafts, they only do like a 3-round, or some don't even do a 4th round. If you get in some leagues that do 5th round drafts, I have quite a few that do 5th rounds because we have some pretty deep leagues. And we do kind of deeper taxi squads. And that's a spot where I love that 5th round, where I'm just going to take a swing on a guy that I like his talent, or a guy I liked in college that I'm going to probably put that guy on my taxi squad and sit on him. A couple guys I really like in that 5th round. Ricky White out of UNLV. The guy who plays special teams, he's a stud on special teams. I think he's an underrated wide receiver. I think because of special teams, he's going to be on a roster, and he has a shot to be somebody's wide receiver 3, I think. Again, in the right situation, I think that he could actually be pretty productive fantasy-wise. So he's a guy that I think can make his way up to a wide receiver 2 in the right situation. So he's a guy I definitely am keeping an eye on there in the 5th round. Also, like I said, these tight ends, if they start falling in your draft, I'm probably going to snag up a couple of them late, 4th, 5th round, and kind of see where they go, just because I just think a lot of these guys have a shot to be good in the future. And if I can kind of sit on and put them on my taxi, I'm going to do that. I didn't take him in this draft because there's so many running backs I still like there. But if we would have got back to us in the 5th round, I absolutely would have grabbed Kyle McCord with my next pick at 5'4". Even though I took Sanders, McCord's a guy, like I said, I'm higher on him than most people. A landing spot's going to be big for him, but he's a guy I feel like even if he never becomes a full-time starter in the NFL, he's a guy that has the high upside to be a long-term quality backup in this league. And if you're in a deeper league, especially in a 2 QB league, but even if you're in like a 14-team Superflex league, he's a guy I want rostered, because I think he's a guy that could stick in the league for a long time as a quality backup, and a guy that if somebody goes down, you could get him in the lineup and he'll actually give you something. So he's another guy that I'm kind of on, and when it comes to that, if I can get him in the 4th or 5th, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who was the Washington's tight end that drafted. I know we were kind of high on him. We were hoping that maybe he would have started this year.
Ben Sinnott.
Yes, that's
out
it.
of Kansas State.
Yes.
So he's a guy I still like a lot. If people are down on him because he didn't play and Ertz had a much better year than people thought he would, go out and buy Ben Sinnott right now. He's a buy for me. He's going to get in the lineup. He was a converted like halfback / tight end. I knew it was going to take a little bit of time for him to figure out the system. So if people are down on him, they just needed the experience with Ertz with a rookie QB. I'm still in on Ben Sinnott. I think he's going to be good. But again, he was a classic example of a guy that went in most tight end premium leagues. He went like mid to late 2nd round. I'm not bailing on him yet. Any league that I took him in the mid to late 2nd round, I knew I was sitting on him. I knew I was probably not going to play him this year. So I think you just got to have that awareness when you're taking some tight ends. Even if these guys get drafted in the second or third round of the NFL draft, the chances of them getting in there playing and being high-end fantasy players right off the bat is just, it's so slim. And like I said earlier in the show, I know we got, got completely used to these guys blowing up because, Brock Bowers had the greatest rookie season ever. And the year before him, Laporta had the greatest rookie season ever for a tight end. And a couple years before that, we had Kyle Pitts had one of the best rookie season tight ends ever. So we have gotten spoiled with some of these guys having just huge things. And not that I don't think a Warren or a Loveland or possibly a Fanning could do that this year. In the right situation, I think they could have a really good season and be a top 10 tight end in fantasy. But I just think you can't count on that. If you're taking those guys, the only guy the only guy that I thought was like a clear fire, I was like, take him, and he's going to be good right away, was Brock Bowers. And I just saw Brock Bowers in college. I had him on all my C2C teams, all my CFF teams. I'm like, this guy is a bona fide stud. I was like, I don't care where he goes, he's going to be awesome. And you saw it. The Raiders weren't great. You saw the Raiders quarterback play. It was
their
low
play
average,
was horrible.
and he was still good. I tell you what, if Shadur Sanders goes to the Raiders, that's my favorite landing spot for him is if he goes to the Raiders at 6. I absolutely love that pairing of Sanders with Bowers. I think he will be hitting Brock Bowers constantly. And then if the Raiders can go in the second round and get a guy like Trey Harris at the top of the second round, now all of a sudden we're cooking with this Raiders offense. I'm liking that. And they go get running back third or fourth round with this loaded running back group. I tell you what, I'm not a Raiders fan, but I tell you what, I'll start paying a lot more attention to the Raiders on game days because I really will like their fantasy upside.
Yeah, I think they really need a quarterback for sure, and they actually do need some wide receivers to help out that position too as well. I mean, Brock Bowers, he was pretty much their offense. I mean, their running backs were so. I mean, they had pretty much you can say a two-headed monster, really. I mean, they didn't really have no bell cow guy back there. I mean, not McKinnon. Can't think of his name now. I was for some reason I was thinking McKinnon, but he's somewhere else. I think he's not even in the freaking NFL anymore. The Vikings.
They had Madison and White.
Yes, Madison.
Yeah, and actually, McCormick. Sincere McCormick was a guy that was one of my favorite, like undrafted free agent guys out of UTSA. I really loved him at University of Texas San Antonio. I really liked him over there. He actually had a couple good games this year before he got hurt. I think the Raiders are absolutely going to take 2 running backs in this class. I could see them going running back either early. Like I've seen JT going to them at 6 in a couple things. I could see him doing it if a quarterback's not there at 6. I could see him going there. If not, I could see him going running back at any of the second, third, fourth, fifth round. I think especially we know how Pete Carroll is. He loves himself a running back, and he doesn't care about taking running backs in the first round, second round, third round. He'll load up. So I think you're going to see some running backs over there for the Raiders for sure.
Yeah, I think so too as well. We're getting close. We got just 3 more spots. If anybody,
so yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah. If anybody out there wants to join us, the link is in the live chat there. So if you guys want to jump in, join us, you sure can. We have 1st, 2nd, and the 12th out there that's left. So if anybody wants to join us, jump in, join us, and we'll get this bad boy started right away. I think the only downfall here is Jaden Ott. I think I heard he is
going back to Cal. So I will tell you right now, there's a couple guys on this list that are going back to school. The guys I know are going back to school on the running back list. Jaden Ott from Cal is definitely going back. There's a couple guys not on the list, the running back list, that have actually declared. So there is a few guys I like that I'm going to be drafting that aren't on the running back list. Wide receiver list, Evan Stewart is going back to Oregon. So you see he's right behind Tez Johnson. He's Oregon teammate. He's actually going back to Oregon, so he's not available. I also think Antonio Williams is going back to Clemson, so he is also a guy on the list. And Barian Brown for Kentucky, he just transferred, and I'm pretty sure he transferred to LSU. He is
Auden?
also not he's also going back to school, so
Yeah.
he's another guy on the wide receiver list that technically probably shouldn't be on there.
Yeah, I know Auden was one guy. I don't know if he, and then who? Sorry, I was getting everything set up. Who was the other guy you mentioned? That was
Yeah, so
probably
as
coming
far as I was looking at running back list going down there, Otten was the one guy I saw on the running back list that is going back to school. Wide receiver wise, Evan Stewart for Oregon is going back to school, so he's on the list, but he's not coming out. Antonio Williams, Clemson, he's going back to school, so he's not coming out. And then Barian Brown, Kentucky wide receiver, he actually transferred to LSU, so he is another guy that's currently on this list, but is not actually going to be in the draft. So those guys, and then also I think Deion Burks is down there low. I'm pretty positive. I know I was just looking at a list last night. He transferred somewhere, I think, from Oklahoma, but he's not going to be back either. So there's a few guys on this list that Sleeper needs to clean up. There's a couple running backs I really like that are not on this list.
Yeah.
I think they'll hopefully once they get to the combine, they'll add some more of these guys. But here,
I believe so. I know Ott. I have actually have a signed one of his college cards. I know this year he actually had a down year down in Cal, which I was kind of little disappointed in a little bit because he was a guy I was kind of watching, and I was hoping he was the guy I was actually going to draft this year. And he I don't know if he ended up getting injured for him to,
it was a little bit of a weird situation with the coaching staff. I think it was a good idea for him to go back to school because this was such a loaded class. I think he jumps up in next year's class and he has a chance to redeem himself. Got a really nice receiving profile out there at Cal, so I hope they use him better this year because he was electric his freshman year.
I got to make sure this is linear before we get going. Here we go. Update this. I almost started doing a snake draft. I'm like, oh hold on here.
Get us all set.
Yep.
What do you want to consider this one QB? Do you want to consider this one 2 QB? Say it's super flex.
Yep. Well, I got this one as super flex, so everybody knows this one's all super flex, and we are off and going. So the last one was kind of a mixture of everything, but this one's kind of be more your 2 QB leagues, super flex and stuff like that. So we'll kind of see what happens here. Oh no, I know this guy. I know who's kind of messing with us here. One of our guys on a Discord likes to kind of mess with us a little bit, and I'm surprised he didn't take Genty.
Well, I tell you what, I'm in a couple 2 QB leagues, and I'm a few other leagues that guys are really hurting at quarterback at the top of the draft, and I know for sure Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders is going to go 1-1 in a few of my leagues.
Yeah,
I guarantee it.
I believe so.
Because I have some guys that are really struggling at QB, need QB bad. I think Genty obviously is great. Go with him if you can get him. But I'm in a situation with a couple quarterback needy teams that I'm probably taking one of those guys if they're there. Now, I love GT. It's hard to pass on him. But
yeah, for sure.
If I need QB in those type of leagues, I'm picking high in the draft. Hopefully, you're not picking high in the draft every year because your team sucks, or you're making great trades. But to me, you got to take advantage when you're at the top of the draft taking QBs if you can. If you like these guys, like I said, I'm a bigger Shedeur guy than I am Cam, but I do like Cam. Cam was my QB2 this season. Yep. Originally started the year as my QB3 behind Carson Beck, but quickly moved ahead of Beck as Beck struggled a bit for Georgia. Obviously went back to school, and now he's at Miami replacing Cam Ward there. So,
ooh, well, I got in this mock. I'm at the 5th, and JT is at the 7th here, and so we had Hampton and McMillan here. Since this is a God, I think I'm going to kind of mess this one up here just a little bit. I'm going to pass on Shedeur. Milrow, he's still a kind of working progress. He's still kind of a working QB, I think, here, and he's kind of that dual threat guy. I was probably going to go Dart here, but I think Milrow would be the second guy off the board for me in a 2 QB league. I'm not really quite a Shedeur Sanders fan. I just think the production down with Colorado was the unique part of why he did so well with all the we think about all four freaking wide receivers they had that helped his cause talent wise, and I just don't think he can produce what he did in the NFL at the college or the college level in the NFL
Yeah,
or
so
vice
here I
versa.
was going to go something different since I took Sure at 1-4 in the last draft, but the fact that he got me back to me here at 1-7 in Superflex, I just don't think I can pass him up. So again, I talked about it a little bit in the first draft. For anybody that didn't hear in the first draft, he's my QB1 in this draft. I'm absolutely a huge Sure fan. I've liked him ever since he was at Jackson State. I just think he is a super accurate passer. He throws a great deep ball. Doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, takes too many sacks, throws a little bit too much off balance when he's trying to make plays. Stuff I think can get cleaned up at the next level. He has really nice anticipation. Like I said, I think he has elite accuracy, over 70% completion percentage for his career. Had 10 picks his last year at Colorado, but 3 of those came in the bowl game when they were down and he was trying to force passes. I think he only had 13 it was something like 13 interceptions for his entire career. It was a really low amount. I mean, this guy was super high end efficiency rating, 74 completion percentage his last year, and then I think in Thor's story, he had a adjusted completion rate, I think, of like 88% or something. So it was like number 2 in the country. So I'm a believer in Shedeur. I don't love if he goes to Tennessee or the Browns. I really like the Giants or the Raiders as a landing spot for him.
Yeah, I think he needs to go somewhere where there's some talent there already. And the Giants, I think it would be a nice spot for him because I love me some neighbors. I try to get him wherever I could, but especially in redraft leagues, I tried to get neighbors wherever I could. And we actually even mentioned neighbors being the better wide receiver out of the core for the Giants, and that actually panned it out quite well for us when we did our NFC East preview. And I just when we looked at it, their core was just not that great, and I you know I think Shedeur has to land in a spot where there's some talent there already. All right. Well, let's see here. So the first round here, we had Ward, Quick, Genty, Hampton, McMillan, Milrow, Henderson, Sanders, Burden, and in the eighth, then we had Judkin, Ibuka, Johnson, and Travis Hunter. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really dived into Hunter yet myself either. I know a lot of people like him, but I'm not sure. We don't know which position he's going to be more likely playing. Um, I don't know. I guess I myself would probably pass up on Hunter, unless he goes the defense side. Then I might maybe consider somebody like him.
So here I wrote for DLF. I wrote a article on Hunter, a rookie spotlight on him. Hunter is an absolute extreme athlete. I mean, he is top of the top 99 percentile athlete. He is just off the charts good. The question is, again, right now, is he going to be a full-time wide receiver? Is he going to be a full-time cornerback and part-time wide receiver? Is he going to try to play both? That's the big question mark. In an IDP league, I think he's a top 3 pick in an IDP league if he plays offense and defense. I mean, he's just going to score you a ton of points. He's elite. He won the Fred Biletnikoff Trophy as the best wide receiver in the country. I actually bet on him and took him before the season started. So pat on the back there for me. I won money on that. He's great. He's absolutely great. I think if he actually was a full-time wide receiver and wasn't a question of him playing a cornerback, I actually think there's a shot that he would be the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see what happens with him, what team takes him, and what they say. I know he's talked out there about saying he really wants to be that number, wants to play both. So to me, that's pretty interesting. If he could do both, I love it. I'm up here At the 2-7, my guy has gotten to me. I'm gonna do it, Devin Neal. It's rare he gets the 2-7 to me, so I got to jump on him when he's there. I just really like him out of Kansas. He's not the fastest guy in this draft, but he's just a good all around running back who can do everything. Kansas was not as good as they were supposed to be this year. That hurt him a little bit. But I like him a ton. He's my favorite running back to take in the second round.
Dart, yeah, I was trying to debate. I would have maybe did some spite. Would have maybe did Dart at the 5th, but a lot of people like, what would we probably get some hate on that? Oh, Dart over Sanders, you got to be nuts. But I think Dart he will be a riser, and I think in the second round that's great value for someone like him.
If Dart goes in the first round in the NFL draft, or he goes in the top of the second, say the Giants or the Browns or the Titans skip quarterback, and he actually goes QB at the top of the second round, he's gonna be a late first round, early second round pick in Superflex leagues. He's gonna be. So honestly, Milroe, the biggest thing about Milroe is the upside of the running. That's where his value is. The guy can run the ball. He's a fantastic runner. He gets the end zone. 20 touchdowns for Alabama this last year is phenomenal. Obviously, accuracy problems for him. Needs to work on it. That can be fixed in the NFL. It doesn't always get fixed, but it can be. So I think the Milroe pick for me is swinging for the grand slam. Like if you're taking Milroe, you're going, hey, I think this guy, because he's got traits like Anthony Richardson as far as running traits. He's not quite as big as Richardson, but he's got the running traits, the ability. He's got a big arm. Can he get the accuracy issues under control? So if you were a big AR guy and you still believe in AR, I don't see why you wouldn't believe in Jalen Milroe. I'm a big AR guy. I have him in a ton of places, but because I'm so exposed to him, I'm probably not taking a lot of Milroe because of that fact. But I do think he is the grand slam guy. You're going to take a swing at him. He could end up, never getting it together and starting in the league. Or he could be that guy that puts it together and all of a sudden you've got yourself that dual threat quarterback that's throwing for 3,000 and rushing for 1,000 in double digit touchdowns every year.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say something about that too. Now I just lost my train of thought. Thanks.
well, outside of that, I think Jackson, like I said, the Jackson Dart, I think he's going to move up. I think if the Raiders miss out on Sanders at 6 and they go G&T or somebody else at 6, I actually think Jackson Dart will be in play for them at the top of the second round. So if he goes to a place like the Raiders, I think people are going to consider that a first round pick because it's a wide open spot for him to go in and start. So I think, Dart is going to be a guy that I don't think you're going to be able to get mid-second once the actual rookie drafts get here. I think if he goes up, like I said, right now he's my QB3 in this draft class. I think he's a late first or nobody really needs a QB in the late first. So I think he's either someone trades back up to get him at the end of the first, or I think he goes kind of like a Will Levis where you see him go early second round. But I don't think that hurts him going second round.
Yeah. That's right. You were talking about AR5 and Milroe. I know we kind of talked about Milroe a little bit. I know just because, Alabama, they're kind of the school that has the talent and stuff like that. And I know Milroe, he made some mistakes too a little bit, but, I think there's pretty well similar. I know AR5 is a little bit taller guy. Milroe is a little bit smaller. AR5 is a little bit more heftier than Milroe. Milroe kind of reminds me kind of like the Jackson, Lamar Jackson a little bit. Not quite as him, but more of a
he's not quite as dynamic as Lamar, but he's a little bit, I think he's a little bit stouter than Lamar, to be honest with you. But I do think they're kind of similar players. I think Lamar was much better coming out as a prospect than Milroe, but I think Milroe has that kind of, I think he is a Lamar AR mix. He needs some more seasoning. He needs to get his accuracy down a little bit, but he's got a big arm. He can run the ball. He is pretty stout. He's not as big as AR. He's bigger than Lamar. So I do think he's a nice mix between those two guys.
I think so, and I think he's gonna have to find the right landing spot, especially for someone to kind of mold him because Jackson, it was kind of that same in that same position, took him a little bit and whatnot. I just think he's got to find the right coaching to kind of get him going, I believe. But I mean, he's not overall not a bad player in my eyes. I mean, that's why we're super flex. I kind of thought, well, he's kind of the only dual threat kind of guy in there. I mean, Dart can run a little bit, but he's not going to take off. He's more your pocket passer, but Milrow will actually he'll take off.
I feel like Dart's a little more of like an Rodgers type of scrambler. He's going to get you solid yards when he has to scramble, but he's not going to just be taken off running all the time. He does have the ability to move. He does have athleticism, but he's not going to be a full-time runner. Milrow, I tell you what, I've seen mocks that have the Raiders taking Milrow at 6 if Cam and Shador go earlier. So I do think there's a good chance that one NFL team gets enamored with the potential ability of Milrow and takes him early in this draft. I've seen a lot of people say that they wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't go till round 3, and they also wouldn't be shocked if they saw him go in the top 10 or 15. And I definitely think, it depends on what teams think about him. Can he have a rise like AR did? Just tore up the combine, and he was a guy people were like, he started 10, 13 games in his career, and all of a sudden he's a top 4 pick. So can Milrow do that? I think he's a guy that's going to impress at the combine just because he's a physical specimen. And we know how NFL GMs are. They always think they can coach these guys up. They want the guys that are the physical specimens, the elite of the elite athleticism, and they think they can coach them up.
Yeah, I Dart for me, I kind of mentioned last night. He's kind of like a Baker Mayfield. He'll run off if he needs to, but he'll try to stay in the pocket. Kind of a gunslinger kind of mentality, and that's what I kind of meant. Kind of when I was thinking about him, like, oh, he's kind of like a Baker. He won't run if he has to. He'll scramble a little bit if So that's what my thought on Dart would be kind of a Baker Mayfield, kind of mentality a little bit. All right, so I'll try to recap here a little bit quick. Actually, I'm up. Actually, here.
Yep, I was gonna say. Yeah, I was just gonna say you're on the clock here. Take a look at here. I was just looking at. I'm 3 spots away, 2 spots away. I'm looking through who I'm kind of thinking about here, as we just had Dylan Sampson go at 3-1, Gabriel at QB at 3-2. Jordan James, another 3 Oregon guys in a row with Gabriel, James, and Tez Johnson. So a nice little Oregon run there, and now you at 3-5 here.
Yeah, I think I'm going to see if Noel did Noel get drafted?
He's not in the list. So what I've been taking, if I'm taking him, what I've been doing is I've been drafting Evan Stewart because Evan Stewart's going back to school. I've been drafting Evan Stewart and just saying that's Noel because he's not.
Oh, gotcha. Actually, I guess, if I think he'll probably be on here. So, but here, we'll just go. I'm going to go with Higgins here in the 3rd round here. I was going to go Noel here just because he's one of the top 3 kind of slot receivers. Because you have Pritchett, you have pretty much you got Restrepo, Noel, Pritchett, and there was some other guy. Kid from the Ducks here. I can't remember his name.
Well, Tez Johnson just went.
Yep, Tez.
Yep, he just went at 3-4. Yeah, I like both the guys from Iowa State, Higgins and Noel. Obviously, 2 totally different players. Higgins is your X. He's your big wide receiver on the outside, and Noel is your slot guy. So it's kind of depending on what you're looking for. Both those guys are on my radar, especially if they get to the 3rd round. I have to tell you, I was eyeing Higgins hard here before you took him. So when you took him at 3-5, I was eyeing him hard at 3-7 here. Scatabo is a guy I'm lower on than other people, but I love the grittiness. I love the guts. I think he's going to be a solid player in the NFL. I'm just not sure he's going to be a huge fantasy contributor at the next level. I'm a little worried about that. So I have Scatabo a little bit lower than some other people. I went running back at 2-7. I have no problem double tapping running back in this draft, as I like a lot of guys. As I talked about before, I like Damian Martinez. I took RJ Harvey in the last draft. in this area. Ollie Gordon, I'm surprised is still there. Ollie Gordon's, I'm not 100% sure what he's going to do at the next level, but
Yeah.
he reminds me a lot of Najee Harris. Now, some people might take that as a bad thing. I like Najee Harris. I think he's highly underrated. I think he's gotten hated on for really things that are not his fault. I mean, he's had a terrible offensive line, a bad offense. He's done what he has been able to do there. I think Ollie Gordon is a guy that can be that type of player, a Najee player. Is he going to ever lead the league in rushing? Probably not. But can he get you 1,000-yard season, 6 to 8 touchdowns, and maybe 30 catches out of the backfield? Yes. So I'm going to take a shot on a guy like that in round 3. And the size is there. We know he's got good speed. Man, he weighed in at 230. I was like,
230,
it's like 230 or
I
235 or something like that. I was like, dude, that's impressive. So the fact that he's carrying that weight that well, and we've seen he's not Derrick Henry. I'm just gonna say that right now. He's not Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is great. I mean, the fact that he's as big and as fast as good as Derrick Henry is, if you've never gone back and watched Derrick Henry high school highlights, holy crap, go back, search it on YouTube. They're ridiculous. He's a man among boys. He looks twice the size of everybody. He's a beast. But I think Ollie Gordon in the right offense, if you put him on a team like the Ravens to replace a Derrick Henry, all of a sudden he's off the charts. He's going early second round in every draft. So he's a guy at this point in the draft I'm absolutely ready to take a shot on him.
Yeah, I love Ollie Gordon, especially if he does go in his second or third. I'm going to take him either way because we did a spotlight on him too as well. So if you guys want to go back and check out, we have our 2025 spotlights, which we started already. We're going to continue to add people while we go. Yeah, I love. I just think that even though OSU kind of they fell off, the Cowboys kind of fell off. I just think that overall, they just kind of hurted Ollie's production a little bit too as well. I mean, it is, I think it's a team benefit at all, but a lot of us were hoping that, Ollie was going to redo what he did last year, and that kind of fell through. And a lot of us were disappointed in his production. And I just think if Ollie falls in on the right team, I think he's gonna be a special guy. Because I mean, when we did our spotlight, I kind of compared him to Derrick Henry a little bit just because of his running style a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, so I just think there's great value with Ollie Gordon.
Yeah, look, if you watch Oklahoma State this year, that team was awful. I mean,
Yeah.
they were freaking terrible. I mean, that team was terrible. I think week 2 against Arkansas was their best game of the year, and then they just absolutely fell apart. They could not pass the football. Everyone was loading the box against Ollie Gordon. There was just no way for him to put up the stats this year. I mean, people forget he won the Doak Walker Award 2 years ago. Like, you don't just win the Doak Walker for being okay. You got to be a stud running back. Aston Jeanty won it this year. I think Ollie Gordon is going to be a sneaky get this year compared to where he would have been last year if he would have came out early.
Yeah, for sure. I think if all in all, maybe I think if he didn't come out, I think he could have been he could have probably gone back for the 26, come out in 2026, which maybe his draft stock probably would have been better than what maybe it is now. Possibly a lot of people, just because his production this year kind of sucked. So maybe, if he went back to maybe transferred to somewhere else, maybe not be a Cowboy, maybe go somewhere else where they're more of a run heavy team. Maybe a lot of people would have been a lot of, considered a little bit drafted him a lot more in 2026, maybe too.
Yeah, if he would have came out last year, I think he would have been early to mid second round. I think he easily could have been. I think he could have been RB 3 or 4 in last year's class. It's just this class is so loaded that he's kind of falling into that middle mix. It's just it's kind of the way it is.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about it. There's the QBs suck this year, but we're loaded at pretty much running back and wide receivers. That it's pretty much a loaded deep class, and the 2026 QBs, I haven't really looked into those yet, but I think it might be better than what this year might be. But I just know there might. I haven't really looked in the 2026 class a little bit yet. I haven't dug that far yet, but there might be some good.
It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of guys there's a lot of potential, but there's a lot of guys that haven't performed in college yet. So it's a very questionable mark class in that there's a lot of guys that people like on the surface, but they have
Yeah.
not performed. Either they haven't gotten in the lineup, or they've been hurt, or when they got in, they didn't perform, and now they've transferred. So it's a class that is really, really up in the air right now.
Yeah, the one guy I do like, he transferred from Tulane over to the Oregon Ducks, and that's Malachi Hughes, which I've been a fan of. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he was kind of the forefront of that team a little bit, kind of your bell cow kind of guy. He's a little bit smaller, but with him going over to the Ducks, I'm a little skeptical, but I still love his talent. I'm more likely gonna be drafting him in our college fantasy drafts coming up this year. I'm gonna take him no matter what. But he's a guy to kind of keep your eye on. He might come out maybe in 2026. So he's a guy that you guys might want to keep your eye on.
Yeah, definitely like him. He's definitely in my Devy rankings. I just updated for DLF. He's a guy. If he can hit it at Oregon this next year, I really, really like his upside.
Oh, 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 oh. Well, actually, it was my pick. So my last pick, I forgot about it. I'm going to take Pat Bryant here again in the last round here. I was maybe going to try to change it up. I forgot I was actually up since we were talking here.
My
I was thinking
bad.
about maybe.
I should have warned you. I should have warned you. I didn't notice.
Yeah, me neither. I was like, wait, I had to let somebody in the comment. Oh, you're another Laporta. I'm like, oh crap, I'm up. But yeah, I was thinking about maybe taking Ty Felton here too, just to change it up a little bit. He's another another big guy. I mean, I like what he had on tape too as well. We actually did a spotlight on him. I can't remember who we all kind of comped him to, but just overall, he pretty much was the heavy hitter in that Maryland offense. I think he was over 20 or 30% of the target share just because they didn't have the wide receivers over there. So they were he was the go-to guy over there in Maryland. Um, I don't know. Felton, Bryant, kind of in that. I think they're kind of in the same tierish, I believe. So it's either way. You
Yeah,
go either
they
way.
were
I
two of the
mean,
better wide receivers in the Big Ten this year. So I like both those guys. I think you're going to get great value in the fourth. I went since you took back Brian again. I got another guy I'm eyeing here in the fourth. I went with Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor, like I said, I talked about a little bit in the last draft. I absolutely love his upside. I think he might be the best tight end in this class as far as all around blocking and receiving and athletic ability. I think he might be the best overall guy. Now, I think some of these guys are better receivers than him right now. I think they have better skill level there. But I think between his athleticism, his receiving skills, and his blocking skills, plus his age, he is young. He's just 21. I really like Taylor. I think he's a guy that if I can take him in the fourth and stash him on a taxi squad for 2 years, I'm loving it because I think this guy has monster upside. I really wanted him to go back to LSU, to be honest with you. I think he's going to end up being a second round pick, maybe early third in the NFL draft. I want him to go back to LSU because I love Garrett Nussmeier. He's my QB1 right
yep.
now for next year. And I thought he would be Nussmeier's number one target. So I thought he could be tight end 1 in 2026. I thought he could have easily been a guy that worked his way into the first round of the NFL draft and a first rounder in Superflex and tight end premium leagues for fantasy. So if I can get a guy that I think has first round talent and I can get him in the fourth a year early, sold. So give him to me. I don't mind sitting a year on him. I really like Mason Taylor, so he's the guy that I'm going to have my eye out. Gadsden and Arroyo, I really talented guys, but if I can get Mason Taylor as a tight end 5, I'm all over it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who all transferred into LSU this year. I don't
We got a
remember.
few
I
wide
know.
receivers that have transferred there. A couple different guys. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what works out there. They have a
Yeah.
freshman tight end that didn't do much all year, but had a big bowl game with Mason Taylor not playing. I'm blanking on his name right now, and I apologize. A real tall, lanky kid had a really nice bowl game. They've had a couple guys transfer in there. It's going to be interesting to see what that wide receiver group looks like this next year. But I think LSU is going to have a high-end offense again. I really like Nussmeier going back to school. Like I said, him and Drew Alar are my top two QBs next year. I know Drew Alar's got a ton of hate from people, but he's got all the skills that the NFL, GMs and coaches look for. Has he been the most productive in college? No, but he also hasn't played in the most productive system. He's another guy that I think going back to school another year is going to help him. But I like those two guys going in next year's class.
Yeah, I know with Mason Taylor, he's the son of defensive end Miami's
Jason
Taylor
Taylor.
too as well. Yep. So
Yep.
he's the son of Jason Taylor. I know. I seen
And
he
his
actually
uncle is Zach Thomas, the old a Hall of Fame linebacker for the Dolphins. So both those guys, Hall of Fame players. He just grew up in a football family. The guy came in, had great numbers. I just wrote an article about him for DLF as well. If you're over there, look at this rookie spotlight. I just said the guy hasn't put up insane numbers in college, but he's put up very, very good college tight end numbers 3 years in a row. Super consistent. And like I said, I think his athletic ability, I think he's going to blow people away at the combine. I just think he is super athletic. I think his RAS score is going to be over a 9.0. And that's where people love it at the tight end spot. They love those 9, 9.2, 9.5, 10.0 RAS scores. I think he's over a 9.0 for sure. I think he ends up being a 9.5 possibly per RAS. And that's relative athletic score for people that don't know what that is. And they just basically take your 40 time, your bench press, your shuttle, long jump, broad jump, all that stuff. They put it all together and they base it on your height and weight and what position you play. I think his 10.0 is the best. There's a couple tight ends that have been in that 10.0 range. I think he's going to be right up there with it.
I kind of seen some of those, but I didn't really deep dive into a lot of that rad stuff as well. I mean, I've seen some people talk about some of that stuff. I'm like, what the hell is that?
That's what it is.
Into it a little bit last year.
It's basically just supposed to try to help you figure out how good of an athlete someone is.
And that makes sense.
Ability, because you're looking at they do how many reps do they do at 225 pounds? What's their broad jump? What's their 40 time? What's their 10-yard split time? What's their 3-cone shuttle to show their how quick they are, agility back and forth. And then you add all those things together, compare your height and weight and what position you play. And it shows what guys are so at. Now, RAS score isn't everything. There's some guys that, Anthony Richardson had a perfect 10.0. He had the best RAS of any quarterback ever. So that was part of the reason why he jumped up people's lists. But we've also seen tight ends that had huge RAS scores and then never did anything in the NFL. But RAS scores for tight ends is a big one because people want athletic guys at the tight end position. Now, the ones that backfire is Bucky Irving was a perfect example. He had a terrible RAS score. He had one of the worst RAS scores ever for a running back last year. Height, weight, his 40 time, his shuttle time, everything looked bad. But he was a good example of a guy that is a better football player on the field than he is an athlete. He looks way more athletic on the field than he does in testing. So that's one of those things you have to look at that sometimes. And I'm a sucker to that sometimes with the analytics. I'll be like, oh, look at that RAS. Yeah. Bucky Irving was one that I dropped the ball on last year. I'll be honest. I liked Bucky Irving a ton in college. I loved his receiving profile out of Oregon. I saw that RAS score at the combine.
Sweet
I was like, dude, I don't know if I can take him. So he was a guy who dropped to the third. I was taking him, but before the draft, like we're doing right now, pre-draft process, I was taking him early to mid-second round. And then once the draft actually came around, I wasn't taking him until the third or fourth round after I saw the RAS score. And I was wrong because, again, he's a better player on the field than he is just straight athletic traits.
I remember we actually did cover Bucky Irving. So, I mean, if you guys want to, I mean, you guys can go check out our college spotlight on Bucky Irving. I know we kind of liked him because he was kind of that dual threat kind of guy. He can receive out of the backfield. And, I think a lot of people, too, were skeptical on, the Ducks offense last year and whatnot. So I think a lot of them were like, oh, well, or I think it was either on Franklin. I can't remember. The offense was set up well or whatever kind of thing. And a lot of people weren't really liking Bucky. And I'm like, with him landing with the Bucks, he kind of overtook Rachaad White, which both of them were almost similar players in my eyes. So one a little bit younger, the other one a little bit older, so they needed, kind of an upgrade, and Bucky was still he's kind of that similar player in my
Yeah,
eyes. So, I
that was
mean,
my biggest knock on him last year was the RAS score moved him down, and then the fact that the Bucks took him. I'm not a Rashad White guy. You could firmly put me in the Rashad White hater category. I didn't like him at all. I haven't ever liked him. So he was a guy. I thought Sean Tucker was going to take over that. I'm a big Sean Tucker guy. I thought Sean Tucker was going to steal that role. Then when they took Bucky Irving, I was like, oh, this might really hurt Sean Tucker, and it obviously did. Because I thought they were the same. Pretty similar to the same player, though I liked Bucky better than Rashad White. And then once you got the season going, you're like, okay, they are similar players, but Bucky's just better, and he's getting that role. If he gets that role, we saw what Rashad White can do. He finished the top 5 fantasy season with like some of the worst metrics you've ever seen. So,
oh yeah, most definitely.
so we knew a running back that got the snaps in that offense could produce, and it just happened to be Bucky. So, it ended up working out well there. And Bucky was one of those guys that his production in college ended up proving out in the NFL. What he did in college on film and what his production was real in the NFL. It wasn't some mirage where he just didn't play good talent, or they set everything up for him and he just lucked into having really good numbers. He was one of the most productive backs in college during his career. So that's why I always tell people, do that early draft list, then do a second list later. Because if I would have went back and looked at my early draft list, I would have taken much more Bucky Irving. But I was looking heavy at that post-draft list where I had Bucky like at running back 8 or 9 instead of my pre-draft list where I had Bucky at running back 3 or 4. That's where I needed to find that medium and say, okay, maybe he should slot in at 5 and 6 as opposed to all the way down at 8 or 9 when I had him pre-draft at like 3 or 4. So
I kind of like doing these mocks too a little bit. Kind of do one kind of early and then kind of later, because once the combine hits, everybody's be scrambling. Oh shit, we'll just we'll throw. Well, next we'll be having Harvey and Tootin up there a little bit more. Maybe over a deal or a Neil or a Scadaboo. It's all going to change quick too, especially when those things hit. A lot of these players are going to be climbing. A lot of them might be falling too. So I mean, these are just for me. I guess these are some nice compositions to just kind of take a look at, kind of gauge. I mean, I'm not a Henderson fan. Last year I had him. The year before I had him in freaking college fantasy. Piss poor job. Couldn't stay healthy. And this year pretty much a two-headed monster with Judkins. So for me, it's still, I'm just like, I'm not a fan of Henderson. A lot of people like him just because of his skill set. But for me, guy can't stay healthy. I just don't really like what he brings to the table. I mean, so for me, I would probably, I would take Judkins over Henderson. But I mean, that's just me, though. I mean, everybody's going to have their personal preferences when it comes to.
I think that's going to be a big debate. And I don't think you're the only one. I actually prefer Henderson over Judkins, but you bring up great points, which I think is going to be the points for a lot of people. He had trouble staying healthy. He was an early breakout, which is the big thing. As a true freshman, he was great. But he has had injury problems. He did stay in college for 4 years. He isn't an early declare. He was a higher rated recruit than Judkins, but a lot of people say, hey, people just kind of missed out on him. He was a 3-star who went in and immediately had a monster year at Ole Miss in the SEC. And I don't think they're the same type of running back. So depending on where they end up, who you prefer, I think is going to be a difference. I think Judkins is a guy that can carry the ball 20 times a game. I don't think Henderson's that guy, but I like Henderson's upside, big plays, receiving ability in the right offense. In the right offense, I think he can be a Jahmyr Gibbs. In the wrong offense, he's an injured guy who is getting you 4 carries a game for 12 yards and 3 catches for 15 yards. You know what I mean? So I think, but I that's why I like this draft class. Outside of the top guy, and not even the top, outside of probably GT at number 1, I don't think there's a lot of other people pushing. I think every other position, you legitimately have people that are going either way. Like there's people that like Tet number 1. There's people I know that like Luther Burden 1. I know people that would take, Hunter 1 if he's ends up being a wide receiver. Same thing at tight end. A lot of people are taking Warren 1, but you look at this draft we just did. Loveland went 2-1 and Warren went 2-3. So I definitely think, there's a lot of mix in this group. And I think landing spot and where people just are going to take who they like. So I feel like this year is going to be one of the least chalk years for fantasy rookie drafts than other years, where I feel like you kind of felt like these guys going here, I have to take him. Everyone's taking him there. I don't think
Yeah.
that's the way it is this year. I mean, I think even at quarterback, I mean, you said it. You're not a big Shadur guy. I know a lot of people aren't. I am. So
Yep.
I think you're going to see a lot of people, certain drafts, people are going to take Shadur number 1. And then you're going to see other drafts like in our draft where he drops to 1-6, 1-7, like he did in the first draft we did. He got to me at 1-7. I do think you're going to see a lot of variables of where guys go.
Yeah, I think so, and that's the thing about it too. I know a lot of, each leagues are gonna be a little bit differently. Everybody's gonna have their preferences. For me, in this draft, was Milrow a guy? Excuse me, sorry. Mirabel's got some upside. If this wasn't if it's just a one QB league, I probably would have just gone Ward and called it good, or even just totally pass on QB if I didn't really need anything. But two QB league, I'm like, well, if not, I mean, I could have maybe gone Dart here just for a shot in the dart, a long shot in the dark. There we go.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have that. I think you're going to have leagues that people take Milrow first because the rushing upside. And you're going to have people go,
Yeah.
oh, I like Dart and I like the landing spot. I'm going to take him. I could see those guys not even being 2 picks apart, but like a round apart in fantasy drafts. Like, just depending on your league and who needs what and what they like. I mean, I just really think it's going to be hard to be like, oh, this guy's either going pick 1-4 or 1-5. Like, I just don't think we're going to see a lot of that. I just think we're going to see a lot of guys. Judkins is another one. I've seen Judkins go RB3 in top 5 in drafts, and I've seen him go early second round. Do people really love him? I've seen mostly Hampton as RB2, but I did a mock draft yesterday where he went 110 in our mock draft. So these things, it happens. And I think you're just going to see more of this variables happen as we get closer to the combine here in a couple weeks. And then we start seeing pro days, which are obviously a big one these days.
For sure.
Too. I think that's going to be big as well.
I guess what I should have did is here, even though I took Milrow here, the other thought, we don't have McCord up in here. That was another thought. I'm like, well, hell, let's try to get some McCord love up in here, and just show that maybe he could land in the 4th round if all possible, if he lands right and whatnot. Because I mean, I know both you and we love McCord. Yep. I mean,
I was between him and Mason Taylor at 4-7, to be honest with you. I almost took McCord there. I was like looking at him like, do I want to take McCord? But again, I took Sanders in the 1st round. Yeah, and I have no problem going 2 QBs. So don't get me wrong there, because I double tapped running back there. I have no problem going 2 QBs there, but I loved Mason Taylor at 4-7. Again, he's right now is my tight end 4, and what I think is a really good tight end class. So getting him, as tight end 6 off the board at 4-7, I just couldn't pass it up. But I tell you what, I'm going to be taking a lot of Kyle McCord in the 4th round. And I think he's going to go up. He's a guy I think is going to move up. I really do. He gets a lot of hate. I feel like I'm probably the biggest Kyle McCord defender on Twitter. I don't know why. It's not like I did it intentionally, but it's just Ohio State fans just absolutely hate him. And I'm like, he was not that bad at Ohio State. He wasn't great. I'm going to say he wasn't great at Ohio State, but he threw for 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 23 touchdowns, 6 picks, something like that. It wasn't like he was horrible. He just wasn't in the Heisman talk and didn't beat Michigan. I mean, that's what it comes down to. He wasn't in the Heisman talk, and he didn't beat Michigan, so he's a terrible quarterback in their mind. If you went, and I tell people, anybody who saw him at Michigan didn't love him. I have a cousin went to Ohio State, doesn't love McCord. I'm like, I can understand you not loving him from watching that season. He gets way more hate than he should. But, dude, if you looked at him at Syracuse this year, different player.
Yeah, no, I know.
10 times more confident, more accurate. They put at Ohio State, they're basically like, don't screw this up. At Syracuse, they're like, you're our best player. Go out there and win us games. It was a completely different guy, highly underrated. And you know what? I love that he's underrated. I'll take Kyle McCord in every draft if nobody else wants him. I'll take him everywhere. Like I said, I don't know if he'll ever be a starter in the NFL. I think he has starter upside. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter, but I think he's a legit career backup, a guy that could get in games and win you games.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm willing to take the shot on a guy like that gets the opportunity and gets into a game and ends up playing well and plays half a season for an injured QB and earns a job. Could he be a Kirk Cousins? I absolutely think he could be a Kirk Cousins type of fantasy player. I really, really do.
And that's who my comp was for him when looking at it, because just the consistency of what he was doing from game to game. He was throwing over 400 some yards game to game. There was one game I mentioned last night on our stream, is that he had 5 interceptions. That was against Pittsburgh.
The Pittsburgh game was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Everybody brings that game up. That game up. But if anybody actually watched that game, it was everything that could go wrong went wrong. Everything. He had guys making picks on tip balls laying on their back on the ground. Now, you're telling me that's totally the QB's fault. And everyone's like, well, he's a turnover machine. He's not a turnover machine. He had under 10 career picks if you get rid of that one game where everything went wrong. And he had 3 pick sixes. I get it. It looked terrible. I mean, who gets picked off for 3 pick sixes in the same half, in one half? It's awful. It's awful. It was a horrible game. It was a horrible game, but it was a one-time thing. He didn't do that throughout his career. And again, a lot of those were tip balls. It wasn't like he was just throwing balls to nowhere. And you're like, where the hell is he throwing that? What is he doing? It wasn't a lot of that. And then they got way down. So again, he was forcing passes because they were way down. So it's like any quarterback will throw picks when they're way down, then you're forcing passes. So anyone who says, oh, he's a turnover machine, did you see that Pittsburgh game? I'm like, dude, that was one game. That was one game. And he had single-digit interceptions outside of if you get rid of that one game. So, yes, did he have one really bad game? Yes, but how many quarterbacks have had one really bad game? A lot of quarterbacks have had a really bad 3, 4, or 5 interception game. Peyton Manning's done it. Brett Favre did it. Like these things happen sometimes, but that's not the player he is. Yeah, he typically takes care of the football. Again, I feel like I'm just always pushing for Kyle McCord. I just think the hate is too much. I just think the hate is way too high. I think he could legit be a 3rd, 4th round pick, and I think he'd be a really nice pick. Right now, I think he's probably a 4th rounder, even though he's my QB 4 behind Dart as my QB 3. And I think those top 2 guys are going top 10. I think Dart. I think he could go 1st round, but I think probably early 2nd. And I think McCord after that. So I could easily see McCord going in the 3rd round. If he gets to the 4th round, to me, he's a steal. He's a steal at that point. Why not take a shot on him in the 4th round if you're a team?
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at his stats here, there was only one game where he did not have a touchdown, and that was against Pittsburgh. Other than that, he had a touchdown every game. The last game, he had at least a 5 touchdowns in one game. That was against Washington there. But I mean, his lowest yards was I think 280. Other than that, the rest of them were over 300, 400 yards passing.
And here's the thing that always blows my mind. People talk about like stats. Like I don't know if you remember when Travis Hunter won the Biletnikoff for best wide receiver, and everyone came out and said Nick Nash for San Jose State should win it. He led the country in every category. Well, yeah, he did, but he wasn't that much more ahead of Hunter, who played a harder schedule. And Nick Nash, a 6-year senior, like he had a good season, but Nick Nash is going to be like a 6th, 7th round pick in the NFL draft. Like, I'm just sorry.
Yeah, and I think that
Travis Hunter's a way better player than Nick Nash. I'm sorry, he just is. So, but then what you didn't hear was anyone coming to Kyle McCord's defense going, well, he led the nation in passing. Why didn't he win the best quarterback award? Yeah. Well, he did. Here's the other thing no one talks about. He outdueled head-to-head Cam Ward. He brought his team back and beat him head-to-head. You know what? Who's not talked about that? Anyone. I've not heard a single person go, maybe we're kind of low on Kyle McCord. He came back and beat Cam Ward head-to-head. Nothing. No.
I remember that too, because I was actually watching that game.
He only did good in the ACC because the ACC sucks. It's an easy league, and that's how he led the nation in passing. But then you never hear anyone say that when you go to Cam Ward, who played in the same conference against the
Eh,
same competition. No
yep,
one says, well, Cam Ward shouldn't be a top 5 pick because he played in an easy ACC. But that's all you hear when people bring up Kyle McCord is, well, the ECC's easy. Of course, he led the nation in passing. I mean, who couldn't in that league?
for sure.
Well, you have a top, maybe the number 1 overall pick or a top 5 guy, and you're saying you're not worried about who he played, but this guy is not good and not NFL ready because he played in the same conference and beat him head to head. To me, that's just insanity.
Yep,
And now, should I
yep,
say, do I say you should take McCord over Ward? I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying the hate has gone way too far. And I think those players are closer than people are giving them credit for. I think
yep.
McCord is not as far behind Cam Ward as people think he is, personally.
Eh, I mean, I have to agree too. And if it all does come down to him, Kyle McCord being a decent, just a backup to a starter, I mean, this guy's going to win you games either way. And this guy's gonna get on the field no matter what. And I think anyways, and that's just me, my preferences too as well. I remember that Miami game, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, McCord, they're gonna screw. I can't believe this is happening. And then next thing you know, they came back. He actually led against my, and that's the other thing too, that a lot of people thought Miami was kind of getting some help too, with some of these calls, some of their calls at the end of the games, and just barely skipping by and whatnot. And I kind of saw some of that too there at the end. Some of the plays that McCord was doing. He had some plays too where he didn't really look that good. You're like, what the hell are you thinking, dude? So there's a little bit of that too as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one thing I thought too is, I wasn't huge on Bo Nix as a first rounder. I liked Bo Nix in college. I thought he was more of a second, third round pick, to be honest with you. Proved me wrong. Was great with Denver this year. I think Kyle McCord is way closer to Bo Nix than people think. I think they're very similar type of players. And again, I think Kyle McCord is like a third round pick, though I think he could go in the second if you have a team that misses on QB early and really likes him. But I just don't understand how people think that he is so much lower than, say, Bo Nix, who went in the first round. So I tell you what, I mean, if I had a team that was looking for a QB or definitely a backup QB, and I had an older quarterback on my team, I would absolutely be begging for my team to take Kyle McCord and give him a shot. I mean,
Yeah,
people act like this guy is nothing. He was a 4-star recruit. Some people had him as a 5-star recruit. I mean, it's just I just don't understand how he just gets trashed as the worst player ever. And I was like, it just kills me.
all right. We'll get to, so let's just go through just real quick, and then we'll get this thing wrapped up. Just
Yep.
one pick from each round that you liked, and we'll kind of get this bad boy wrapped up.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking through this, kind of seeing where I saw picks. Luther Burden at 1-8. I have a couple mid-round picks. Luther Burden 1-8, I absolutely love. If I can get Luther Burden at the 1-7, 1-8, 1-9, somewhere in there, I'm ecstatic. I absolutely love that. Another guy had a down junior year, but was absolutely phenomenal as a sophomore. So I'm not going to get huge into him, but I love Luther Burden. I think that's a great pick. Second round, getting all those tight ends, 2-1 Loveland, 2-3 Warren, 2-5 Fannin. Really nice spot for all those guys. I love the fact that I got Devin Neal at 2-7, as I just complained about the draft before. I couldn't get him at 2-4 because he goes too early. I really like. I'm really surprised. I have to say, I would be shocked in a lot of drafts if Devin Neal, I took him at 2-7, if there's only one running back gone in the second round of rookie drafts. I can't believe we had a second round with only one running back went, which was wild because I think there's going to be running back in the second round. But the fact that he only was a running back in the second round, I thought was pretty surprising, which was awesome because then it pushed a bunch of running backs to the third round, which gave me Ollie Gordon at 3-7, which I loved. I think that's great. Dylan Sampson at 3-1, I think, is going to be really interesting. He's got a ton of talent, little undersized. Be interesting where he goes. 3-1 could be pretty great for him. I think he ends up being more of a early to mid second round pick. So that one is nice there. Your Higgins pick, I was eyeing him. I like Higgins. Depending on where he ends up, that could be real nice. Going to the fourth, getting Damian Martinez at 4-2, I just love. Another Miami guy, a big back, transfer from Oregon State.
Yep.
I think he is a guy that is going to end up being a better pro than college. He was never like fully featured. Oregon State as a freshman, he was great. As a sophomore, he was great on a bad team. Went to Miami this year, split some time with Fletcher. They threw the ball a ton with Cam Ward. So he didn't have great stats, but he was good when you saw him in games. He popped. I like Damian Martinez. I think is sneaky. We already talked about last draft, Pat Bryant. I think Pat
Yep.
Bryant is an absolute guy you have to keep an eye on in the
Yep.
fourth round of drafts. I'll tell you what, I didn't take him. I took Mason Taylor at 4.7, but Woody Marks at 4.8. I'm high. Here's the thing. I was taking Marshawn Lloyd in the mid second round last year out of USC. I like Woody Marks more, and you can get him in the fourth, if that tells you anything. So I think
Yeah.
Woody Marks is a better running back than Marshawn Lloyd, and Marshawn Lloyd was going in the second. You get Woody Marks right now in the fourth. Give me Woody Marks, man. I just think he's highly underrated. He played at USC when they were down, so people weren't paying much attention to him. He played
I think that was the cause.
at Mississippi State, and he went by Martavius, not Woody. So a lot of people don't realize that when they look him up. He was really good receiving back. I think he had maybe 75 catches one year at Mississippi State. Don't quote me on that. I'm rounding, but he was definitely in that range one season there. He was a great receiving back at Mississippi State when they were throwing the ball around. I think he's going to translate really well to the NFL. If I can get him that late, man, I'm probably going to have to get Woody in the third, I think. I really do. But, dude, if you can get him in the fourth, I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into Woody a little bit because I know last year they had the other running back who went to Green Bay. He didn't really play too much, and I was like,
yeah, they had Marshawn Lloyd, and then he transferred
yep.
over for Mississippi State with the changes.
Oh, gotcha.
And then they had Quentin Joyner, who was the backup to him, who just transferred to Texas Tech this next year. Another guy I like if you're in C2C leagues. Quentin Joyner's a guy to keep an eye out. Him replacing Taj Brooks, which is another crazy thing. We haven't even talked about Taj Brooks. He's not even on the list. He's a guy that I think teams really like. I know the Steelers have talked to him a bunch at the Shrine Bowl, or it was the Senior Bowl. It was one of those, Shrine or Senior Bowl. They interviewed him a couple times. They like him a lot. He's a guy. Again, I feel like I'm terrible because I always talk about Syracuse players, but LaQuint Allen is not in the sleeper system right now. He's a guy I like a lot. I have him currently as RB6 in my list. I just saw Mel Kiper has him as RB3. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I thought I loved LaQuint Allen. Mel Kiper has him as RB3 right now. So I don't
the kid from Syracuse, right?
But I really like LaQuint Allen. I just think the running ability, the receiving ability, you can put him out wide is good. Again, another guy that people aren't going to have an eye on because he's not in the list on sleeper right now. But he's a guy I think is going to sneak up there as well.
Yeah, I had some shares of him too from Syracuse. Yeah, he was another guy I kind of had some recognition with. I was gonna try to get some more tape on him too, because I mean he was a decent back too. I know he
really good the last 2 years, over 1,000 yards rushing, close to 10 touchdowns, a really good receiver. I think if you watch his receiving tape, you'll be surprised. They set him out wide and in the slot a couple times. They would go empty set and put him on one side and throw it to him one-on-one. They really trusted him. McCord trusted him a lot. He's a good back, man. He's going to fall in this draft because there's so many backs, but man, he's sneaky good.
Yeah. I think he had 341 fantasy points on the year. I know he had a couple 100-yard games. I know he had some touchdowns too as well. He had 2 touchdowns in a game too as well. I know there's quite a few guys that I like, so Tootin is one guy I like, in the 4th round there. I mean, he's going to be a guy that might be on the rise. Sampson, I like, he had that great value in the 3rd round there too. He's kind of a walker to me. He's got to kind of fall. He's kind of one of those guys from Seattle. If he lands in a position like that. 2nd round, I like Jack Bitch there. He's going to have some great value for somebody. He looked pretty good in this the Reese Bowl there. He had some nice catches in that bowl there. I watched the 1st or 2nd game. It was TCU Arizona. It was a late night Friday, and I was like, at first it was like, Oh God, here we go. Another TCU guy. Hopefully he doesn't end up a first rounder because a lot of the first rounders end up just shamming out. Just no good. But if he lands in the second round, I think he's going to bring some good value to somebody, especially on a team wise. I think he can end up being a wide receiver 2 right away, just because of his skill set. Um, I don't like Isaiah Bond. I'm not gonna draft him in anywhere. I think he'd be more your waiver wire guy. I just don't like what he brought out there, what he put out there anyways. I'm just not a fan of it. And then, Caleb Johnson, if you can get him actually in the 11th round there, I mean, that's gonna be some great value. I mean, he's the second highest guy to Genty for as a guy coming out of the backfield.
Yeah, and like I said, I was just looking up stats. So under 1,000 yards rushing this year for Allen, but he had 1,000 last year. But he had 61 catches for almost 500 yards this year. 61 catches. So I mean, he had a really really nice season. 1,000 yards the year before. I was trying to get in and look at Woody Marks to kind of give you an idea what he did. So he had 1,100 yards rushing this year, which is his first year over 1,000 yards rushing. But he had 47 catches for 300 yards. I was right. I went back and looked at his Mississippi stats. So his freshman year, he had 240 rushing, 397, and 532, and then 573. So he's a little bit older back because he played 5 years. But he had 2 years of 500 yards rushing, but receiving freshman year, 56 catches over 200 yards. Sophomore year, 79 catches for 464 yards. Junior year, 45 catches for 274 yards. This guy has 250 career catches for almost 1,500 yards and 5 touchdowns in his college career as a running back. 250 catches for 1,500 yards and 5 touchdowns as a running back. Added another 2,800 yards rushing on almost 600 carries. 4.9 yards a carry, 30 rushing touchdowns. So 35 career touchdowns. Was that 4,200 yards total offense? 4,200 yards and the 35 touchdowns in his career. And he didn't play for some great Mississippi State teams. So I just think he's a highly under the radar guy just because nobody paid attention at Mississippi State because they were terrible. He went to USC this year, which was solid, but they were kind of a wreck this year. Everything with the whole situation, everything going on there. To me, why I like him, and I don't know why I'm getting in these huge rants on certain players. But the reason I liked him is I already knew he had a great receiving profile, but the fact that he was able to carry the ball 200 times for over 1,000 yards at USC this year proved to me that he could be more than just a receiving back. Before that, at Mississippi State, he was mostly a receiving back, had about 100 carries for 500 yards back-to-back years, but putting up 200 carries for over 1,100 yards this year. Really like that. Career 4.9 a carry. 5.2, 4.7, 5.7 yards per carry his last 3 years. So I just think he's a highly underrated guy. If he gets on the right team in the right system where they let him play as kind of like a third down back or has a shot to like work his way in with the number one starter, I just think he's a guy has a chance to be fantasy relevant.
Gotcha. But yeah, I think it's time for us to get up out of here. We gave you 2 mock drafts. Two
mock drafts. We've going almost 2 hours. We gave you. We appreciate everybody jumping in on the mock drafts, kind of last minute on a few of these. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was. The one was kind of just an orthodox one. Not really no strategy to it. Just kind of an open draft. The last one was pretty much your super flex. I think the first one kind of had a little bit of premium, tight end in there too a little bit. The first one was. Second one was kind of just your super flex and whatnot. A little bit different than what a lot of us with a lot of drafting or drafters. So this one was a little different than most common mock drafts is what we would say. But yeah, that we gave you some McCord love, some other radar guys to kind of talk about too, or you brought up too as well as far as running backs. But yeah, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on X, me at AlRunFant, JT Orange there. And we have Instagram, Apple, Spotify, and we got Discord link, and we are on Twitch too as well. And I'll let JT let you guys know where JT is too as well.
Yeah, just you can find me on X at JT Orange. Feel free to hit me up with questions, anything like that, draft related. You want me to move on? You want me to, you have a trade question or something you want to, a poll you want to throw up there, hit me up. I'll retweet that to guys as well. If you're a DLF member at DLF.com, I've got all kinds of rookie spotlights going on right now. Other places you can find me is fantasyandframes.com. I do a bunch of shows over there. I have my show, The Stew with JT Brew. We've been doing mock drafts right now. During the season, I do an NFL betting show you can see above here, and I do a college betting show. So if you're into that sort of thing, you can jump on there. Dynasty Evaluation podcast. My buddy John McGlynn's the host of that. I jump on as a co-host with him. We've been doing rookie spotlights there the last couple of weeks. So jump on and check that out as well. If you're in the IDP during the season, I'm on the Shoot the Gap IDP show on Wednesday nights on Fantasy and Frame. So jump on and check that out. And if you're looking for something else, because some of the NFL content is a little low right now, I've got my hockey show on Fantasy and Frames called Around the Ice. We do that every Tuesday night, 9:30 Eastern time, 8:30 Central time. Jump on. We talk fantasy hockey. We talk real life hockey, what's going on in the league. And we love gambling on hockey. So we have our gambling segments. Jump on there, follow us. We've been hot lately. Last 2 weeks, it was a slow start to the season. Not going to lie to you. Real slow start to the season. It was a little rough early on, but we've gotten hot the last couple of weeks. My buddy Toast, you can look at his Toast takes at Fifth Hockey, at Fifth Hockey on X. He always puts his Toast takes, which is his daily bets on hockey on there. We always put up some pretty solid bets, and then we like to throw up some crazy long shot goal bets, and then I'll put up my JT parlay play of the day, which is always long shots, kind of like Hail Mary ones that I really like. You only got to hit one out of about every 10 to 15, and you're golden. So I'll throw those up there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get my IDP league set up so I can get you and a couple of your other guys joined up there. I know I have another guy that wants to get into a IDP league, so I remember mentioning that here because I would like to play against you, see how knowledgeable I am.
IDP is great, man. For people who haven't got into it, I've got a bunch of people into it the last couple of years. It's just it's fun, man. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's so much more work. I got to look at these guys, look at that stuff. I do a IDP plays and fades on Fantasy and Frames during the year. So you can follow a lot of those, the picks I pick and my rankings. I do IDP rankings, Dynasty on DLF, as well as Devi rankings. So a lot of places you can follow these days to follow that stuff. And it's just individual defender leagues are so much fun, man. Nothing's better when a guy gets a strip sack or a pick six and it wins you a league. It's awesome. So I'm a huge proponent of the IDP leagues.
Awesome. Well, JT, I appreciate you joining me tonight for this mock draft. It was fun. It's a blast, kind of, just hearing your takes and thoughts. And I just love the collaboration with you. It's always fun.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Definitely, you guys go check out his rookie spotlights. Got one me and him did on Kyle McCord, but a bunch of other ones out there that are really good. So make sure to check those out.
All right. Well, from Outer Rhythm, I'm Jamie. I thank JT for joining me tonight, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.